Hi there, my name is Destini Moody, registered dietitian and board certified specialist in sports nutrition, and today I'm going to talk about nutrition and hydration for training at high altitudes. Let's get started. So most of the sports nutrition research that have come out of nutrition recommendations for high altitudes have been done for athletes training at an altitude of about 3,000 meters, which is a lot higher than most athletes will train. Most athletes will train closer to 1,500 meters or 2,400 meters. So we need to make recommendations for that. For the most part, if you're training at an altitude of 1,500 meters to 2,500 meters, there are some considerations to take place, but for the most part, you are going to follow most of the nutrition recommendations that you would follow at sea level, with some exceptions. Altitude training started in the 1960s when the Mexico City Olympics were held at an altitude of about 2,200 meters. Since then, people have realized the benefits of training at a higher altitude. So why does training at high altitudes help athletic performance? Why do people train up in the mountains for the hope that it's going to help enhance their athletic performance whenever they perform at sea level? Is this all quackery? Actually, it's not. Because whenever you train at high altitude, something happens to the body that we call hypoxia, which basically means a state of having less oxygen. Why does that happen? It happens because whenever you're at a higher altitude, there's less oxygen available, or most people would say the air is thinner. And when that happens, the body is amazing at putting some measures in place to sort of alter the metabolism and other things in the body to make sure the body gets enough oxygen. One of the ways that the body adjusts for hypoxia, or the lack of oxygen available, is that it will alter the blood volume or the blood flow. And it's found that that can enhance athletic performance in the way that blood flows whenever you reach sea level, and that you are now altered to be able to deliver more oxygen to the muscles, which is very valuable for endurance athletes. So that's why people train at high altitudes, even if they're not necessarily competing at high altitudes. If you are in a competition that is taking place at a high altitude, like in the Mexico City Olympics, then it would make sense for you to train at high altitudes before the competition starts. But that doesn't mean that you should only train at high altitudes in that case. So let me go through a myth here. There was a myth that whenever you train at high altitudes, you need more carbohydrates because the rate of carbohydrate oxidation is a lot higher whenever you train at high altitude. However, the study that sort of brought that recommendation about took place when athletes were training at an altitude of 4,300 meters, which is much higher than most athletes will ever train. Whenever the altitude was brought down, we sort of found some mixed results in that we can conclude that carbohydrate oxidation isn't changed to a significant degree when you reach high altitude, so nothing to worry about there. There are also some mixed results concerning energy utilization and how many calories you should consume. Some studies show that your metabolism ramps up whenever you're at high altitude, so you should consume more calories, but there are other studies that say the opposite. There is one thing that is common though. It is common for your appetite to be altered when you're at higher altitudes, and you may find you have a decreased appetite. If you've ever been on a long plane ride, you may find that you aren't as hungry as you are when you're at sea level. So if you do experience that phenomenon when you're training at high altitudes, it's important to alter your energy intake and for you to consume more energy-dense foods so that you can get all the calories that you need, because energy availability is going to be crucial whenever you're performing. If you're in a calorie deficit, your performance is probably going to suffer because your body doesn't have enough fuel to do the physical activity that you need to compete. Again, if you've ever been on a long plane ride and you've gotten off of the plane and you're just like, oh gosh, my throat is so dry, I could drink a gallon of water, that's because you were at a high altitude. This is also why airlines are required to give passengers a certain amount of fluid during a certain number of hours after the duration of the flight, because they are aware that these fluid losses occur. The reason that this happens is because of this hypoxia. Your body isn't getting enough oxygen, so your respiration has to increase. You have to breathe a lot harder and a lot deeper to get the oxygen that you need. And every time you breathe, you're losing minute water droplets from your body, and it causes you to lose water at a higher rate. So hydration is absolutely important. If you're training at a high altitude, or if you're immersed in water, or if you're training in heat, these are all things that can increase fluid losses. So there's not a specific fluid recommendation for when you're at an altitude. However, you should be tracking how much water you're losing through measuring your body weight before and after training and looking at your urine to see what color it is. If it's dark like apple juice, then you're not getting enough water. Another important thing to keep in mind is iron status. Because of the hypoxia that you experience, you may need more iron than your body would need at sea level. This is because iron is the portion of our red blood cells that circulates oxygen throughout the body. And if you are iron deficient or if you have anemia or something like that, you're going to be in a world of trouble when training at high altitudes because the oxygen efficiency just isn't going to be there. Your performance is going to suffer because your body isn't going to be able to transport oxygen to the muscles in an efficient way. So it is recommended when you're training at a high altitude to supplement with iron, preferably elemental iron from 100 to 200 milligrams. Big caveat to this though, if you already have a good iron status, meaning you have enough iron in your blood already, and you supplement on top of that, it can cause a toxicity, so you should confirm your dosage with a physician or with a registered dietitian. That being said, it's also important to remember that iron is a metal. Anybody who took chemistry here will tell you iron is literally on the periodic table as an element, as a metal. It's not really intended to be taken in its purest form because we're meant to really get it from food, right? Because that's not a harmful part of it. Whenever you're getting it in a supplement, it can be very hard on the gut. So you may experience some gastrointestinal distress if you are supplementing with iron, but it should go away after about 2 weeks. Last but not least, let's talk about oxidative stress. So it has been hypothesized that when you're at higher altitudes, oxidative stress increases. Most of you know this as inflammation. All those free radicals that bounce around in our body and cause damage that antioxidants from fruits and vegetables tend to fight so that we can battle these free radicals and stop that damage from going. So it's not really recommended that you supplement with an antioxidant. Really just focus on eating a lot of fruits and vegetables while you're at that high altitude to sort of battle that oxidative stress and make sure it's not impacting your performance. So what's Destiny's bottom line? The bottom line is the things to consider whenever you're training at a high altitude is keeping tabs on your appetite. If you're finding that it's decreasing, definitely make sure you're eating enough calories. Plan that. Track your food to make sure you're getting the calories that you need. Check your iron status before you go. Getting blood work is a great way to do this, and you can check with your physician to see how much iron you can safely take. Last but definitely not least, you need to check on your hydration because you will experience more fluid losses when training at those high altitudes. And just losing 2% of your body weight can impact your athletic performance. So make sure you get that water in. This is the Athlete's Dietitian signing off.